Yeah, okay. Good morning, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for your willingness to come in our session in the Advanced Database course. Yeah, I hope all of you are always in well conditions. Yeah. Okay, so now we are going to continue our lesson in Advanced Database course. And right now, our topic is about connecting application to the database. Okay, so this is our topics today. First we are gonna discuss about the database systems. After that, we are gonna have small talk about the MVC web applications. After that, we are going to continue about how to establish a connection to a database from application. And then the last theoretical things is about the running SQL commands via application code. And we have also the last topic is about case study about lecture management features in the final thesis system. Yeah, for topic 1 until 4, it is the theoretical aspects, and then for the fifth topic, it is about the practical aspect. Yeah, and then for especially in the topic number 5, you can explore it, you can do it by yourself while reading the lab guide that I have uploaded into the Google Classroom. Okay, so now we discussing about the first topic. It is about the database system. Yeah. Okay, so what is database systems? Yeah. So students, do you still remember the differences between database versus database management systems versus database systems? What are the difference about these three things? Yeah. So database is different from the database management systems as well as from the database systems. If we are talking about database, actually, technically, database is the physical file that is used by the DBMS or database management system to store the data that is written by the users. Yeah. So database is a physical file. So if you find in your computer, there will be certain folders, and inside those folders, there are some files. And in those files, it is the actual location of the data that is written by the users from the DBMS. Yeah. So that is database. So if you are asked about what is MySQL, what is PostgreSQL, what is SQL Server, it is actually a wrong answer. It is not quite correct answer if you answer it's as a database. Yeah. So MySQL actually is not database. MySQL actually is a database management systems or DBMS. And the same thing goes to PostgreSQL, SQL Server, and also the Oracle, yeah, and many other databases. So database management system. So bear in mind that database is different from database management system. So the database is the physical file, the physical locations where the database put the data into. Yeah. And the database, and what is actually the PostgreSQL, MySQL, and SQL Server? So they are actually a database management system. So the most correct answer for if you are asked about what is MySQL, what is PostgreSQL, what is SQL Server, they are database management systems. Yeah. So inside a database management systems, there is a component. There is a component to handle write operation, read operations, and then how to put it into the database, the physical file, the physical locations in the operating system. Yeah. And lastly, it is about the database system. So what is actually database system? Database systems is no other than any applications, any systems that whenever it works, yeah, it needs the help from database. It has to use a database. It is what we call database system. So database system can be any system. Yeah, it can be academic system, it can be library management system, it can be information management system, it can be any system. As long as the system will not be able to work properly without the use of database, it is what we call by database system. Yeah. So why I am talking about this one? Because whenever we are learning about database management system, yeah, especially in this semester about the advanced database, the final goal is actually for you to be able to become either one, yeah, a person who are able to create or manage database that is used by application, by a database system, or either for you to be able to be a programmer or to be able to become a person who is able to manage a program that is connecting to a database, that is using a database, or both of them. Yeah. So this is our final goal, to be able to manage database that is used by applications, or to be able to manage applications to that is managing a database, that is using a database, yeah, or both of them. Yeah. So for this reason, it is important for us to understand how an applications can receive or send data from or to a database. Yeah. So this is what all about in this today's topic. Yeah. Okay, so this is a well-known example here, especially in Indonesia. This is one example of database system. We know Gojek, right? So Gojek is a big system. It is a large system. It consists of many components. Yeah. Karo. Iyo. Okay, so we know that Gojek is a large system. It consists of several components and many different types of users, right? So there is driver who deliver the food or maybe deliver passengers to the place, yeah. And it can be also the restaurant users, yeah, that creates that cooking the food, and also we as the general consumers, right? So in this Gojek applications, in this Gojek system, actually, the application that is we are accessing from the mobile side, it is just part of the entire system. Yeah. These applications sends data through the internet and then accepted by a web server, and then those web server will send the data to the database itself. Yeah. This is one example of the database system. Why database system? Because the system will not work properly if you turn off the database, right? So Gojek will not properly if you if you remove the database from the system. Okay. Um, and that is in general perspective, yeah, in the general perspective. In more technical way, yeah, so we can say that any database system, it is consists of a database and then application, yeah, in the database layer and then application layer. Between those two layers, there is a connections, and this connection is in the form of usually in the form of port or a socket, yeah. By having this connection from the applications and also to the database, the applications can send the SQL query to the database and get the result through the connection. Yeah. Okay, so actually there are two types of users of database management systems, right? So the first type is the real human. It is usually database administrator or system administrator or maybe a programmer. Yeah. And then also the second one, the application. So application is a user, is a type of users that can work with database management systems, right? Okay, so between of these two types of users, which one is um, you know communicating with the database more? Yeah, which one, user or applications? Yeah, of course, the one that is having more communication with database management system is the applications. The use number two, yeah, type number two, applications. Why? Because a real human that is communicating with database usually only technical person, yeah, only technical people, yeah, just like a programmer or maybe database administrator or maybe system administrator, network administrator, yeah. Sometimes they need to communicate directly with the DBMS by using SQL, right? This SQL will be typed directly either via console or maybe via graphical user interface such as pgadmin, yeah, something like that. Yeah, but on the other side, there is applications. Yeah, so majority of people in this world who are interacting with the database will not interact directly, right? They will use application. So for example, in WhatsApp application, any people who write the message, just type the message that he or she wants to send, right? They don't need to write something like insert into message where message sama dengan where message equals to hello, something like that, right? So no ordinary users typing SQL directly into WhatsApp, right? So that's why I'm saying that the one that is mostly communicating with the data DBMS is the application. So that's why this is important for you to be understand how you can communicate, how you can make an application, how you can make your application to be able to connect to the DBMS. Yeah. Okay. So in creating a database system, there are two important things that we need to understand. First one is, of course, how to establish the previous thing that I said before, yeah, the connection, the connection. Without those connections, you will not be able to work with database uh, in your application. Yeah. So the connection is very important, very critical aspect in order for you to be able to create those kind of applications. And then the second one, after you are successfully creating the connection to the database file from your application, next you have to understand about how to execute the SQL statements through your application code. Yeah. Of course, because sending SQL via pgadmin maybe or phpMyAdmin, it is quite different from sending SQL via PHP, for example, if your project is using PHP, right? So this is also important things for you to know. And in this topic, we will discuss about that also. In addition, other than those two important things I have mentioned before, you have also understand about how to arrange your applications, how you arrange those connection, those SQL, and then alongside with other types of your application source codes, in such a way that you become not confusing whenever you need to modify or whenever you need to manage your applications. And then also the last but not least is about the security aspects. So there is some security concern whenever you work with SQL in your applications. Yeah, and I will tell you about this later. Yeah, so this is four things we will discuss together in this topic. Yeah. Okay. So next is about the MVC web application. So this is about how we arrange, yeah, how we arrange our applications, yeah, in such a way so that we are not get confusing whenever we need to modify our applications. All right, so we continue to the next topic. This is about the MVC design pattern. So MVC design pattern is one of framework that we can use. I'm sorry, it is not framework. Actually, it is a design pattern. It is a way, an alternative for us to be able to manage our source codes. So that is can be hopefully less confusing. So in MVC design pattern, the components, the source code of our applications mainly divided into three components. So the first component is the M components. M here stands for model. Any source code that is related to the modification of data, either it is in database or in file, memory, etc., it will be arranged into a folder called models. Yeah. Then the second component is the view. V here is view. Yeah, view is, as you might guess, view is the place for any source codes that are related to how we draw our user interface. Yeah, our user interface, user interactions. Yeah. Um, Such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, something like that, if it is in PHP. So we put it in the components called view. Yeah. And then between the user interface and model, there is some middleman, yeah, quote unquote middlemen. Yeah. Those middlemen will in charge of serving or accepting the request from view, and then tells the model to look the suitable data from those requests. And this component is called the controller. Yeah. So if we So now if we illustrate the view, the model view controller design pattern, it is somewhat like this. Yeah, so the components, any source codes, any part of our applications that is facing the user directly, it is called the view. So user can interact with our application via the source codes inside the view components. So here, for example, from the browser, if it is a web application, so the user will use the browser and then open the page, and this is where the source code for the page is located in the view component. And then if a user, for example, clicks some buttons and those buttons will save some data, the view will send those data to the controller. And then the controller will decide which action is suitable for those requests. And then the controller will send the data to the models. The model itself then will uh, make a query, will run a query based on the data that is sent by the controller. Those query then sent to the database, and then database will give the result to the model, and the model will give back the result to the controller, and the controller will send the result to the view, and view will build the user interface that is suitable for this data, and then this user interface will be presented again to the users. Yeah, so this is in general how design pattern, how the model view controller design pattern works. Yeah. So where is our SQL command? The SQL command will be written here. Yeah, so model here is any code that is related to how we manage, how we change, how we write or read the data. Yeah, and then between the model and database, there is we will need something called connection. Yeah, so you may see when we create a model, there may be some source code that is using the connection that we will create. Yeah. Okay. And then the next topic is how to establish the connection to a database. Yeah. So in the uh, previous topics, yeah, in the MVC design pattern, you already know that between the model and database, there is something that is called connection. And those connection will be needed for us to be able to execute SQL command from application. So now in this third topic, we will discuss about how we can establish a connection, how we can create the connection to the database. Okay. In order for an application to be able to execute the commands for getting or sending data from to or from a database, uh, it must first create a connection. Yeah. The connection itself, it is a term commonly used uh, for physical connection, yeah, for logical connection between our applications, our computer, yeah, that is hosting the application, and the computer that is hosting the database. Yeah, so it can be logical terms, logical connection, and it also can be physical connection. Yeah. Logical connection if the database and applications resides in the same computer, in the same server. But if the applications and the database is separated into different servers, so maybe you have one server from the application and then one server for a database, those two servers will form a physical connection. So those connection usually in the form of TCP, TCP or socket. TCP stands for trans uh, transfer transmission control protocol. Yeah. And usually in a programming language, this connection, it's termed as the connection, or usually using con if we create a variable of connection. Yeah. And then its programming language usually has its own connection library. So we can use many different programming languages to create a connection, but in different programming language, usually the syntax is, yeah, the way that we create connection may be different. Yeah, may be different. Yeah. And this connection library usually in the form of classes or functions. Yeah. For example, in PHP, yeah, in PHP, there are several functions that we can use to connect to the different databases, such as MySQL underscore connect. These functions usually used to connect to the MySQL database. Yeah. Except other than MySQL Connect, we can also use MySQL Connect. This is more modern alternative than the MySQL Connect. And if we want to connect to PostgreSQL database management system, we can use PG underscore connect function. And another example, if we want to connect to SQL Server, we can use SQL Server underscores connect. Yeah, but for this function, for you to be able to use this function, you have to install it first from Microsoft. So it is not installed by default in PHP. Yeah. And other than those functions, library usually can be in the form of classes. Yeah. For example, like in PHP, you can use PDO. Yeah. It is called PDO, PHP data object. So you can use the same syntax, yeah, the same syntaxes to connect to the different databases. However, if you choose to use PDO in PHP, you have to install a specific driver for a specific databases. Yeah. Okay, so this is the preparation if we want to connect to a database from our application. Yeah. So in order to connect to a database, there are several things to consider. Um, First, we have to make sure that the library for the database that we are using is installed. Yeah. So we have to check first whether in our programming environment, in programming language, there is already exists, yeah, the library, the connection library that we need. Yeah. If it is not, then try to find a way to install it first. Yeah. For example, if we use PostgreSQL to connect with PHP, um, usually it is already installed by default if you are installing PHP via XAMPP or maybe Laragon. Yeah. If you cannot use this function, maybe this function is not installed, yeah, in your PHP environment. If that thing happens, then you have to try to find a way to install it in your PHP environment. After you make sure that the connection libraries exist, then we can start to write the code to connect to the database. In order to be able to write those code, we need some informations about database. Yeah, these are the minimal informations that we need if we want to connect to the database. Yeah. First one is the host. Host here meaning the address of the server or computer where the database is installed, where the database management system is installed. Yeah. If you are using the same computer with your application, so you can uh, put localhost or 127.0.0.1, or it means those computer in the same computer in the local environment. So we can put localhost or 127.0.0.1. Yeah. And then if the computer is resided in different devices, in different hardware, different computer, different servers, so you cannot write as localhost. Yeah, you have to write the actual IP address of this computer. It can be local IP address, it can be internet IP address. Yeah. So after you have the information about the host of the database, next you need to prepare the information about the port. Yeah, port is something. It is, we can say it as maybe some kind of tunnel. Yeah, it is like tunnel. Yeah. Port by using a port, two computer can exchange data, can send and receive information. Yeah. And specific port usually will be used by uh, usually by one application. Yeah, so one application in this computer and then one application in this computer, and then they will communicate with each other using one port. And if you are using PostgreSQL, the default port usually is 5432. After that, you have to also prepare username. This username is the username that you use to connect to the DBMS. Yeah. For example, in PostgreSQL, usually the username is Postgres. And then the password is password of the database, not password of your computer. This is password of your database. Usually, if you install PostgreSQL by default, this might be empty. Yeah. And then the last information is the database name. Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't translated this yet. So database name is the database that you want to connect. For example, in our case, it is database of Sistem Tugas Akhir, right? So these five informations, you will need it to be able to create a connection to your database. Yeah. And this is not only applies to the PostgreSQL, but it also applies to many other DBMS. Usually, this minimum information is needed. Yeah. So host, port, username, password, and the database name. Okay, if you already have those informations, now you can start to write the code in your application. For example, here we are using PHP. We have the function here, public static function get connection. In those function, please take a look at this one. So those information that we have gathered before, we write it into our source code. Yeah, so for example, here host is the local host, and then the port is 5432. And then this is the database. I want to connect to this database called Sistem Tugas Akhir. And then this is my user. This is the syntax to detect the user automatically. If you are using Linux, I think. Yeah, I don't know if you are using Windows, this will work or not. If you are using Windows, you can just type it here. Instead of using trim shell exec UMI, you can delete this one, and then you can just write Postgres, yeah, or your name, or your username. Yeah. And then the password here is empty. After that, this information, we combine it into a single string. The string is commonly called as connection string. Usually, DBMS will use connection string to receive the connection, to accept the connection. Yeah. So we put the values in these variables into a single string here by using PHP syntaxes of string interpolation, right? So we write here host, and then we put the value of the host variable, and then port we put the port variable, and then DB name we put the DB variable here, and then the user, this is came from the user variable here, and lastly the password here come from this password variable. Yeah. Then after that, this is the syntax, the actual syntax to create the connection. We are using the function pg underscore connect, just like I have mentioned before. Yeah, so we call the function pg underscore connect. This is the connection library that I mentioned before. Yeah. So if the live connection library already installed in your PHP environment, then there will not be any problem in running this function. Yeah. So connection, self here, meaning that I have the connection variable, but the connection variable here is a static variable. So that's why I'm using self and then double colon here. Yeah, pg connect, and then this pg connect takes parameter from this variable, yeah, connection string. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, if the connection is uh, successfully created, then we can use it to run any SQL statement from our application. But if the connection is null, it means that the connection is not successfully established. Why is it like that? Usually, it can be maybe you put wrong IP address, you put wrong port, or you put wrong database name, or maybe you put the wrong username and password. If not like that, then check whether your database server is running or not. Usually, if you have already put the correct host, port, DB, username, password, but you still not be able to connect to the database, usually your database, check your database, maybe those database is not active. Yeah, it's not running. Yeah, you have to make sure that the database is running. Also, there are sometimes problem from the firewalls. Yeah, so firewalls can cause problem because firewall can block certain port, so your application cannot connect to this 5432 port. Yeah. Okay. Then you already from up until here you already understand about what is database application, what is database system, and how to arrange the source code that is so it is become less confusing for us. And then you learn how to create a connection from database. Yeah. So last but not least is the uh, last topic here, yeah, the topic number 4, how we can execute SQL commands via application code. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so if your application already establish a connection to database, now you can execute the SQL statements or SQL commands from your application code. Yeah. Um, these SQL commands usually is created based on the functional needs of the application. So you don't need to write and so many SQL command. You just need to make it uh, match, yeah, make it suitable for the needs of your applications. Yeah. For example, if you want to display all the data, yeah, all of data from certain table, for example, yeah. For example, if we have like the sistem tugas akhir or final project system, yeah. For example, you want to display all of the lecturers' informations. So you already learned that if we want to show all of data, we can use select all, yeah, select asterisk, yeah, select, yeah. So you can use select, and then if we want to search, if we want to search certain docent, certain lecturer based on their name, so you can use the SQL statement of a select like, right? And then if you want to update, for example, if you want to change the address of a lecturer, for example, yeah, then you can use the update statement. So my point here is that we just need to write SQL that we really need for implementing the functional needs of our applications. Yeah, we don't need to write any SQL that is not needed or not used by our application. Yeah, and then to run SQL through application code, the way is slightly different from running SQL on tools like pgadmin. Yeah, you have to understand how to compile your SQL into a string variable. Yeah, because in whenever we are using pgadmin, for example, we can directly type our SQL. For example, like select all, yeah, from lectures where name likes, for example, Adi or something like that. Yeah. But if you run your SQL from the application code, you cannot do that there. You cannot just type the SQL. You have to put your SQL syntaxes into a variable, and usually it is a string variable. Yeah. And then the second one that you need to understand is about the security issues. Yeah. It is directly related to the first aspect, how to compile SQL into strings. Yeah. If you are not careful, then uh, it will have certain degree of probability that your application will have some problem in the future related with the security issues. Yeah. Okay, so this is the example. This is one example of very simple source code in model, yeah, in model class. Yeah. So we have model, view, control, where we put the data, in our applications. It is of course in the model. Yeah. So the example that I have given you in this lecture, um, we are using the MVC design pattern. Yeah. So that's why any code that I have shown you here, it is the code that only have some connection with the database. So I'm not put any emphasis on other codes because uh, we are not, this is not not a web developer development course, right? So this course is database. So I focus more on the model class. Yeah. So this is one example of the model class. If you forgot about it, I will remind you again. So we have in MVC, we have view, we have controller, we have model, right? So the connections and then